got a ticket for my destination. On a tour of one night stands, my suitcase and guitar in hand, and every stop is neatly planned for a poet and a one-man band. Homeward bound, I wish I was homeward bound. Home, where my thoughts are sleeping. Home, where my music's playing. Home, where my life lies waiting silently for me.
Very fond memories of the Recreation Center upstairs in the Opera House starting in the mid-60s, which was a very progressive thing for Norway Paris to do at the time. It was a big deal. And there's a number of us here who were there. So, this program technically is sponsored by the Norway Opera House Preservation Group. And the Historical Society got involved because we like old things. Sorry, Mike. And we have the meeting space. So thank you all for coming. Mike is going to give us his recollections. You were invited to share yours. I have a story, but I can't say it publicly because it's vulgar. I mean, and that's a huge statement. I'm not going to say it publicly, but I also want to point out that over on the display cases are some copies of news articles about the Recreation Center, about Mike. This is, up here is Mike's scrapbook, which you're invited to look at, but it's really fragile, so please be careful with it. I understand that after everybody's had a chance to speak, and after you have chowed down, and please chow down a lot, that there are going to be tours given. Annie, is that correct? At the Opera House. And if you have not been in the Opera House since we were kids, you really have to go. They have a lot of work they still need to do, but it's very cool to walk up those stairs again. Even though it takes us a little longer than it did when we were like, I'm very happy to introduce Mike Rozos. We're thrilled that you're back.
Thank you, Sue. And thank you, Annie, for contacting. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be here just to be with you to share my memories and experiences in the little Opera House. But I need to give you a little information what led up to the Opera House becoming the Recreation Center, which was the pillar of the Recreation Department. In early 1966, the town of Norway Paris basically had been approached by certain citizens, residents, parents, and civic leaders to do something for the youth. This was during the 60s, and some of you remember there was a revolution going on, a music revolution. There was a bandstand, there was Elvis, there was Bill Haley and the Comets. There was a lot going on with music. It spread throughout the country, and Norway was no different. So the children here loved to sing and dance and socialize. So their main interest was doing something for the youth. So they decided to form a commission. What they did is the town of Norway Paris secured Robert Smith, who was an attorney in Paris, to put together an agreement, an interlocal agreement between the two towns to form the Recreation Commission. They took that to the state legislature in early '66, got it approved, went to the commissions, and got $5,000 from each town to operate or start some type of a program for the children and youth. And I saw an article. I just graduated from Richmond Professional Institute in Richmond, Virginia. I had worked all those years I was in college at the Richmond Parks Recreation Department, part-time and full-time, paid my tuition. And I saw this article about Norway Paris in this professional magazine was looking for a director. And I was working then in a suburb called Bellmead. I was building a community center, part of a school, working mostly with youth and senior citizens. So I saw the article and I submitted my resume, sent it to the commission in care of Bill Dieter. Most of you know Bill Dieter. And he was the chairman of the commission at the time. So I sent the resume in and I got a notification they want to interview me. So not really ever been out of the state of Virginia. I catch a plane, I fly to Portland, and Bill picks me up. So we head north on Route 26. Basically a city boy, and I'm like, oh, that's the trees. I said, where am I going? And so that night, I met with the commission, and we met at the Main Machine. Bill owned Main Machine, and he and his partner, Roland Sutton, and two wonderful men. And the Recreation Commission, they interviewed me, and the commission consisted not only of Bill Dieter from Norway, but John Kelly, who worked for him at Main Machine, and Grace Wiley. Grace Wiley was working at the Stevens Memorial Hospital as well as the library, and her husband Harold had the car dealership on Route 26. And in Paris, the town had appointed Evelyn Harper, married to Dr. Harry Harper, one of the founders of the Stevens Memorial Hospital, and she was the golf pro, not golf pro, she was the #1 golfer, club champion at the country club. So she was quite a lady. And we had Reverend Phil Thayer, Reverend at the Baptist Church. And we had Bill Wright, who was the principal at South Paris Junior High School. So that was a commission. So they had 20 applicants. I was the last one to interview. That night they said they offered me the job. They started me off with a grand salary of $7,200. That doesn't sound like much, but if you take in inflation and everything, multiply that by a factor of 9, today that equals something like about $70,000 in today's market. And that $10,000 budget would be something like $90,000 in today's market. But then it was $10,000. And so that night they were looking for a contract for me, and they found a scratch of paper. And I said, I need a contract, so I'll go back and resign from Richmond. They gave me a contract, and they all offered a job to me, the salary, half of my medical, and the moving expenses. They didn't have a lot to move, but moving expenses. So I signed it, and all of them signed it. And it's just a scrap of paper I've had all these years. And I'm going to put out locate, I can't find it. I'm going to give that to the museum, where it's really interesting. Because we really started from scratch, this whole thing. So I spent the night at the Norway Motel. And the proprietor and owner was Frank Chalmers. You know Frank Chalmers, but I think the facility's great. So I spent the night there. Bill took me back to the airport, flew home. And my wife says, well, what? I says, pack your bags, we're going to Norway, Paris, Maine. Okay. So I walked by a $500 57 Plymouth, tires unknown, condition unknown, and I rented a U-Haul. What little I had, one of the small little U-Hauls. We headed north. And so we're heading north, and I want to stop seeing my sister in New York on the way. So we stop in New York. So we get to Lincoln Tunnel, and I'm just getting paid the 25-cent hole. The needles are empty. And I'm going through the tunnel, and I said, please, on a Friday night, don't break this. But I found my sister the next day. We came to Norway. Grace and Harold Wiley were very generous and allowed us to stay with them until we could find some place to live. And we got to Norway. I got lost. I couldn't find their house. Yeah, I lived in cities of 500,000, a million. I couldn't find it with the population less than somewhere around 3,000 at that time. So we found them, and in addition to her being a connection, we became very good friends. And what was important about that, they introduced us to Connie Fallon and Coach Bob Fallon, which basically were the stalwarts of our staff. And we didn't have much of the staff. We had mostly a few key people like Bob and Connie, Margot Block, David Fields, who I'll talk about later, and everybody else was volunteers. So I got here, and man, I'm so enthusiastic. I was running, and I was going 24/7. I said, well, first thing to do is we got to do something for the youth first. So through the schools, I got some of the kids together from Paris and from Norway, and we talked about we need a center. We need a facility that's yours, a place you can go and you can enjoy. So we searched all of Paris and Norway, and we thought about the schools, and I suggested, well, how about the schools? We're in school all day. We don't want to go back to school. We want our place. And plus, the schools, they program all their facilities. It might be available sometimes, but we need something full-time, 24/7. So we looked and looked. The only thing we could find, except like a Grange Hall or not even a lot of other facilities like that, weren't even available. We found an opera house. So I went up there and we looked at it. I said, this is it. So we went through town. Don McAllister was the town manager. You remember Tom McAllister?
Yes.
His assistant was Betty Smith. Her husband was Gordon Smith, who operated the grocery store. You remember that. So we went to the town, and he said, sure, we only use it like once a year for town hall meetings. And the town hall meetings there were, they set up some chairs, and about less than 300 people would show up. And everything was by hand, like this, going there by hand. And so, but they still do it. They still do it. Wow. It's good to see something hasn't changed. No way has changed. And so we made an agreement with the town to use the Opera House. Basically, our expenses were maintain it and pay for the utilities. And at that time, there were 3 trustees appointed by the town. It was John Longway. You all know John Longway. Probably more Forrest than Longway more than that. So, this Mr. Hutchison, Vivian Hutchison from the jewelry store. Him and his dad had a jewelry store right underneath my office. You'll see that afterwards. And he's the one that got the most blood from the center. Because the kids upstairs, that were transitioned right down to the store. You imagine a jewelry store, all this jumping and clowning and singing and dancing. But he put up, he was a good guy. And then there was Lloyd Mason, Woodman's, downstairs at Woodman's Sporting Goods. You remember that? Sad to see they're gone. But that's part of change, I guess. So we decided to make a center out of it. And, I forgot to mention, the night they hired me, that night, on the way back to the hotel, Bill says, SAD 17 is having a meeting tonight, a school board meeting. He said, do you want to go be introduced and say something? I said, sure. He was not in town. So I go to the meeting, and I watched the board. I think it was Mr. Libby. Was he the superintendent then?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Mr. Libby. And I knew Mr. Cunningham was the principal of the high school, and of course Bill was the junior high. And hi, how are you?
Good afternoon.
And Bill introduced me. He said, "Will you have anything to say?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm a strong advocate of the community school concept. Where I've lived and worked, we always utilize our schools like all our public facilities. Basically, we're all the same taxpayers. If the school's not being used, we like to have it available for recreation, whether it's a gym or a classroom or a field or something." And that was their feeling. They felt also the community school, and that was a big part of the program outside of the recreation program at the Opera House. So we had a great relationship with the school board. The next best relationship, I got around and I met Stan Newhall at Advertising Democrat, and it was Ben Tucker, who was a managing director at that time. I met those people. It's created a strong relationship. And I met this young man, not much older than me, Bob Moorhead from the Portland News.
Oh,
I met him. And also I met with the radio station WKDQ, which gave me 15 minutes every Saturday morning for the Recreation Roundup. And I had a column in the Democrat called Recreation Roundup. And there would be all the programs listed, dates and times, special events, everything that we were doing at that time. And had a great relationship. I never got any bad news from Bob or Stan. And the reason was all our activities and programs were so positive. They were new, first time, that it had to be good news. So everything we had. When you go to the album, you will see a lot of good news. And I'll cover this more in a little while. But so we had the Recreation Center going. It was like 70 years that floor hadn't been cleaned. And it was grimy, and the walls were dusty. So the kids and me, and a few JCs, we finished the floor. We went the long ways, got the sanders, got the finish. It was the most massive job. But we had to stop on Friday nights because Hutchins was selling, and that sander would just vibrate the whole floor. And you'll see some pictures of it. Some of you might be in there. There's pictures, some of the children up on ladders, painting the walls, cleaning things up. So what we did, we formed like team councils, junior high council and the senior high school council. And we supervised, Connie, Bob, and I, we supervised. We didn't structure kids, we didn't offer organized, we gave them up to decide what they wanted to do. So we had a billiard table, we had a ping pong table, we had tables and chairs and games, a shuffleboard, had a basketball, and we had a 45 RPM record player, which never stopped. I think when they wore records out, they had to go get another one. But they still were self-governing. They planned the dances, they planned everything. And we supervised it. We just make sure it was appropriate and it was available at the right time and so forth for everybody. And no cost involved. But they did their own fundraising with refreshments and things like that. But And then the JCs came in and they were very helpful. What I did next, during this whole process, I joined the JCs, I joined the Kiwanis Club, got on the board of directors, got involved, got inside man, you know. And then I met with the ministerial groups, Reverend J. Lello, Reverend Thayer, Reverend Miller from the Church, and I'll go more than later about the Senior Citizens Program. But I established a total grassroots relationship across the whole community. We had the school board with us, the junior high, the senior high, and we had the JCs, had the Kiwanis Club, and things were just moving. And I think sometimes maybe we moved a little too fast, but people wanted things so much, especially the kids. And they would sponsor their own dances. Some of you probably remember the first outdoor dance at the First National Bank. Had an outdoor dance there. And I can't remember who won, but I know they danced on. It's a marathon, about 9 hours. And they had a lot of outdoor dances, indoor dances. If you look in that book there, the album, you're going to see pictures of the whole floor. It's packed. There were no wallflowers in Norway and Paris. All the kids were dancing. That was their bandstand. But I wasn't a big part. And when they did things like fundraising. I know that they did a fundraising at the marathon. I think they collected $40 and they donated to a scholarship program. And so we had that program going. Afternoons, we had the junior highs come in one time period, and high school kids were coming up. Come on in. Who's this?
Mike Rozos.
Hey, Mike, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, sure has. You changed. So have I. I didn't recognize Conrad. I kind of see you changed your hair. We've all changed our color.
Yeah.
So the center was at one full state. So the next challenge was the seniors. With Ruth Dakota at the Extension Service, we looked at the most recent census, and it showed there were over 1,000 people who were ages 65 through the 2 towns. And consider it's a small population of these 2 towns now. That was a lot of people. That's where the ministers came in and helped me with getting the word out to the church, to the Sunday service, that we're starting a program. So we started looking for a facility. In South Paris, we utilized the Grange Hall. And in Norway, we used the Memphis Hall Social Hall. So we had facilities in both towns. And it wasn't just for those seniors in Norway to go to Norway. They took advantage for both of them. They meet 1 week here, and 1 week they meet over here. And they had all kinds of activities. First of all, they loved to eat. They always bring a dish. But we had to organize it. Everybody can't bring a cheese casserole. You know? And by the way, when I came here, I weighed like 105 pounds. When I left, I'm not 205 pounds. Well, most guys must have been 230 pounds. I mean, all these casseroles, I ate them all. And, so we had the program going there, and we had dancing and slow dancing, and we had music. We had people coming and teaching crafts. We had one gentleman named Frank Plummer. Anybody remember Frank Plummer from South Paris? He was self-proclaimed spoons champion. Big personalities. It was Frank Plummer and Merriman had a band. And they would come play the band and play music. And he would start talking. He was very full of stuff, nice guy. And he tried to say, Frank, sit down. We want to start playing cards and eat. So he was playing Karan. He was also an artist. He painted a beautiful picture with us like that. But Frank Plummer he was a wonderful man. And the program grew so much that I couldn't staff and do everything. So I wrote a grant. So I went through the Old Americans Act, and I wrote a grant and submitted to the state of Florida. And there was 2 Parks and Recreation departments in the whole state. Us being the smallest one, got one of the grants for $6,700. With that grant, I was able to hire a supervisor to supervise and program and work with the seniors. His name was David Field. David grew up in South Paris, and his family were from Buckfield. And they had like a little store up there. But he would come down, and he would program the seniors, and he did a great job. And one other thing. I had no transportation then. That 457 Plymouth, it bombed. I was up on Highland Avenue, on 3 Highland Avenue, 2nd floor, and I made after about 6 months, I go in the car, and I push the button, it's a push button. didn't start. We wouldn't go to rehearse. So the cost of fixing that was more than I could get. So I didn't have any transportation. So I went to Harold Wally and I bought a brand new car. Beautiful, beautiful car. So I'm driving from Wally's going to the Opera House. I'm going by the old town hall where the fire station was, and the hall was upstairs. So as I drive along, happy as can be, in my burgundy car, I mean, it's wonderful. My first car, my first new car. One of the volunteer firemen doesn't put his lights on, doesn't put the siren on. He bangs right into the right person. Well, in the Opera House Democrat, I was the news that week. I got the car fixed and insurance took care of it. And the other, and so what we did, that was the car my wife needed too. And so I was a member of the JCs, and they like community projects. It's very important. Mostly a group of young men in their 20s and 30s, mostly under 35, who want to do community projects for the benefit of the total community. But they wanted to do something with the Recreation Commission side. So what they did, they formed a show called a minstrel show. I don't know if you remember. And they rehearsed, and you can see a picture of a massive group of people rehearsing the minstrel show, singing and so forth. So they put on a show, they raised enough money to buy a pickup truck for me. And if you look at that picture, you'll see a blue pickup truck that says Norway Parish Recreation Commission, donated by the Norway Parish JCs. White wall in the front, black wall in the back, painted blue, gold letters. So I was very visible between the towns, back and forth, back and forth. So I drove that the whole time I was here. We used it for maintenance, pick up supplies, taking games, activities. So I drove that the entire time, and it worked very good. But one morning I couldn't start it. I said, well, turn over. And so I went down to Jules' Auto in Paris. I said, I can't turn. He said, well, Mike, get yourself a light bulb. I said, what? He said, get a light bulb. He said, put it under your hood. He said, the oil is still getting beyond thick and it won't turn over. So I got an extension cord, run it down from my apartment, come down from the parking lot, put the light bulb in and throw a blanket over it. Check it out next month. Sorry. Imagine. We've been to the moon, remember that? So I drove that, and then I hauled more stuff. And then as the program grew, we found a need for some transportation to get children around for different activities. And SAD 17 had decommissioning buses, and we purchased a yellow school bus. Norway Parish Recreation Commission. That thing goes back and forth in Norway Parish on activities illustrated within 2 minutes. And if you worked for me, you had to be a bus driver. And if you couldn't, I had to find a volunteer who did have a license and so forth. Everybody drove the bus. And so the JCs, they were one of my greatest supporters. And the Kiwanis Club was also. Kiwanis Club wasn't much active in working, but more businessmen sponsoring and offering things to their businesses, coupons and discounts and some dollars once in a while. So we had the bus going. And then, so we had the youth going with the Opera House. That place was moving. And you could drive out, the windows up, you could hear the kids. I mean, it was alive. And then in Paris, if you went to the senior citizen centers, the roof was coming off. I mean, they had a great time. And one interesting thing we did is once a month, we would profile one of the seniors. And we would profile and tell them who they were and their background. And there was one, I got a picture of Harriet Buck from Paris, and beautiful woman. And she was the first one we did, honoring our seniors. And they loved it because everybody wants to be known and recognized, all of us do, respected on top of it. And so the program was going great. David Field was doing a great job. He would take them to places, foliage tours, he'd take them parents, some jewelry, stones. He would take them everywhere around the county. And there were some people who could drive, and they would carpool with some people. Some people had trouble getting up onto the bus. Because you know the longevity of Maine. I mean, we're talking about 80 and 90 years old. That's 65 and over, didn't mean a lot. So as I stand here. But so the next thing we took on, there was a no-car ski slope. I'm sure most of you get to see the skis up there. Well, that ski slope was developed like in the late 30s by a ski club. And one of the key people there was gentleman named Jim Thorpe. And Jim Thorpe was he was a volunteer force, and it was used sporadically. A volunteer would show up once in a while, and they would turn that old combustion engine on and get the rope tow going. But it wasn't planned or organized and so forth. You could go there, there'd be nobody there. So we staffed it, and there was afternoon skiing free, and on weekends we had instructional skiing. And you go to the boat, you'll see Jim Thorpe in the middle of the slope, and you'll see all these kids lined up along the side. But the ski, if it snowed, you had to pack the snow. And if you really like skiing, going down that slope like this, and that was fairly steep. And at the rope tow was kind of like, now like it's a little fuzzy. And some of the kids would show up with cloth or wool gloves. It was like Velcro. Even though we had a kill switch, I feared that more than anything. So I said, no more gloves, no more any fabric. You got to wear leather or something vinyl. Because even though there's a kill switch, a child could fall down and go under there. So that was terrifying. So we eliminated that. And at the top was that big boulder where the kids would jump over the boulder. There was even a story that Jim Thorpe told me once. There were some guys, who did a jump over Orchard Street. Actually did a jump over Orchard Street. None of our kids or anyone else did. But Jim Thorpe and you remember Cindy Buell? She was a young lady. Cindy Buell was an instructor. She was a volunteer. Ronnie Goodspeed, he helped out. Remember those days?
I do.
Yeah. And many others, because most of the kids skied. But it hadn't been used as much because Mount Abrams and all the other slopes were developed like in the 50s. So mostly it was young people, and in high school used it also for training until they went up around the Eastern Slope over there. So we had the skiing going on there, and it was very popular. It was organized, and you see the picture. Might see you in there. You might see some children that you knew and grew up with. And as I recall, Ronnie was one of the volunteer instructors. There were several youth from the Opera House. They didn't just enjoy the opera. They gave to the community. They went up there and they helped with the instruction. Because you had children like this going up. So we had the ski slope going, and it was very popular. The next thing is there was a need for ice rink. So there was no ice skating. You can't skate on ponds and lake because of the rough conditions and the snow and all that. And so we built a skate rink on the old fairgrounds in Paris. And I got the Public Works Department. Bob Butters was the Public Works Director. Anybody remember him?
Yes.
Bob Butters. Yeah, I think he was also the fire chief. Yeah, I needed to talk to him about that volunteer bit, but I didn't get a chance. But Bob Butters arranged for one of the graders to go out there, and they graded a big area, smooth and flat as you could. And then I found through the Ruth Dakota, who worked at the Extension Center, one of the secretarial staff was Ruth McGregor. Ruth McGregor worked at Extension Service, the same building where the Paris Town Hall was. And Ruth did all my typing, stenograph, everything was rolling those things. She did all the stencils, all the printing, and I couldn't type. So she typed the grant for me. She did everything. But her husband, Dave McGregor, industrial arts teacher, baseball coach, I got him to help me build the boards because we needed boards to go around the rink. So Dave, we rounded up all the materials, a lot of it donated, some purchased through Longley's and everything. And we got the Key Club, Australia High School Key Club, built all those boards around the entire rink. And then to develop the ice, developed a unique system. Ken Irons. Remember Ken Irons? Ken Irons was a volunteer fireman, and he was a champion speed skater. So he saw the rink, he got excited because he loved ice skating. He says, I'll help you, Mike, to build the rink. So he had this big wrench, and there was a fire hydrant. And he put that wrench on there, he'd line the hose, and he'd drag it all the way to the rink, and we'd go out there and hold the hose and spray it. And he'd call me like 9 o'clock at night and say, Mike, the temperature's over, let's go. It's 9:30, let's go. I says, okay. I was working 24/7. I loved it. I was so enthusiastic. I was a little pioneer. Instead of going to West Hollywood Bar. So Ken and I got up, we're spraying it. He said, Mike, don't spray it so high. I said, what? He said, can you see the ice coming down? So he showed me how to spray it. So he sprayed it, had a nice ring. Kids, everybody loved it, except for the snow. If you want to skate, you had to help. We had a snowblower, but you still had to help clean up some of the areas. In addition to that, Ken supervised and he taught skating, and he loved it. He was a wonderful man. So volunteer. We had a lot of volunteers. And Dave McGregor, going back to him, on the junior high, we wanted to establish a junior high sports program. So we established a junior high basketball program in the old South Paris gym. Is that gym still there?
No.
Is that? Yeah. So we established a basketball program for the junior high boys. And the old wooden floor, the old wooden gym, it was kind of neat thinking back. He taught the basketball program. And we would play something, we'd play among ourselves. Didn't have a lot of money, so we played skins and shirts to start with. You guys remember that? And eventually we had to scrape off a few dollars, and Jay and Joe and JC said only a few dollars, and we wore jerseys for kids. We played among ourselves, the league, played some other towns. And then through the Maine Recreation Park Association, which is directors all over the state, they get together and form a professional organization, like lawyers or doctors have an association. So I joined that, and I met all the directors from Lewiston, Maine, Bangor, all the directors. And as you meet them, you learn things, they share things with you. Because I don't want to repeat something, it's not necessary. So I met a guy named Robert Hodge. He was a therapeutic recreation supervisor at Pineland, which I think originally was Powell State Hospital. Eventually became Pineland. Massive place, must be 50 buildings and thousands of people, mostly mentally and emotionally delayed children, youth, and adults. And Bob was basically working with the educational and trainable children. He was a recreational therapist. So I met him in one of these programs, and I said, nice to meet you, Bob. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a therapist, and it's like a basketball. I said, you got a basketball? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, we're looking for some teams to play. Can you come up and play? So Dave and I, we loaded up the old school bus, and we headed over, and we took the kids up there. The only thing different was our kids were mostly around 11, 12, almost 13. And when you get there, mental age is, the chronological age is, we were playing kids like 15 to 16 because mentally developing, they were like 10, 11, some of them. So there was a lot of holding, a lot of walking, a lot of traveling. I've always won, but they said, they were beat up. They said, man, they grabbed me, coach, did this. I said, and I kind of tried to explain to them. I said, they didn't understand the terminology like that. They're going, these boys and girls need normalcy. And all they've done is playing for the kids, inside. And as time went on, as most of you know, that facility closed, and those programs went into the special education in the schools. And there were private medical facilities. But the saddest part, I've never seen it, but the worst thing I saw there, he showed me the profoundly retarded, and it was, I wish I had never seen it. And it was almost like what they started closing old institutions in the late 50s and 60s, because a lot of people were just being warehoused. Those things have gone now. We have medical facilities, we have professional people working with them. And most of the educational trainable kids are in special ed, are in programs, whether it be Goodwill or special training or something like that. So that was an interesting thing. I thought it was kind of unique, and I think the boys learned something, even though they were a little beat up. So the next thing we did is we formed a flag football program over from junior high, and volunteers mostly ran it. Coach Bob found the football, he loved it. He said, hey, that's a feeder system for my football program. So it was all flag football, and there was no tackling. We taught the basic fundamentals of stance and passing off and things of this nature. So we had the program going, and the only expense was the flags and a couple of footballs. And that program it was gangbusters. The first day we showed up, we announced it in the advertiser. We all showed up. 70 boys showed up. We didn't have enough coaches, so we had some coaches. So everything was so anxious to get things going. And we used the high school gym. We used the armory. We used the South Paris Junior High School. We established a great relationship with the armory. I can't remember the sergeant's name. He was a wonderful man. He allowed us to use it. And even when the JCs had a big fundraiser, they had a cabaret there. If you ever went to the cabaret, you were too young. probably home babysitters at that time. But I had cabaret, they raised funds there. A lot of the funds came to us, through special programs and things. But the Armory, in addition to allowing us to use it, on Cottage Street, we had a playground in the Cottage Street in the summer. We had a playground in Cottage Street and Brick Street in Paris. And there was like a little gully or something up there, and we couldn't get in. So I convinced them, they were engineer corps. I said, can you help me? They built a bridge, a little wooden bridge, going over that little gully, whatever. And so we had a summer recreation program at Cottage Street. I had secured 3 college students who were doing community service that summer, and they kind of ran that program. And then I had Margot Block. Remember Mr. Block? Bill Block, I believe it was. His daughter, she ran the Briggs playground and had some volunteers that worked with her. But the Briggs playground was wooded when I got here. So Hank Morton and the Morton family from Paris Manufacturing, they donated 3 acres to the town of Paris. And I said, I got a playground. So I went and found some woodsmen, and I got them to clear it. The only issue I had, they chopped down one of the neighbor's blueberry bushes. Think back, these playgrounds, there's no utilities. There's no toilet facilities. So I had a local carpenter build me 2 restrooms. And they were the front runner of these honey pots you see around the construction sites. It was a red little building with a roof and a little moon on the door. And we created our own little septic tank in each area. And it was painted red, and we put it there and furnished it. And for water, we brought in the big containers for water. And that's when that playground started. And we had crafts, we had games and music, had field trips to the bus. So we had a great summer playground program going. And down the road, I met a man named Larry Fournier. Remember Larry Fournier? Mm-hmm. He worked at Sanborn Express, the dispatcher. He was in a wheelchair. Amazing, most amazing man I ever met. And I happened to be on the Special Olympics board for the cholesterol, so I met him through that. And he was a state champion for the wheelchair Olympics, for the shot, for the discus, for golf. He played golf up in Norway Country Club. And for the discus, and he was an amazing man. I've never seen anything like him. I learned later that he had a little handy store in South Paris at one time. He ran a handy store, and I lost track going after that. The only people really kept in touch with after we left basically was Harold and Grace Wiley, because they were commuting to Florida all the time. And I loved it because it was fucking lobsters. Lots of them! Those were the greatest times. It wasn't like work to me. I really enjoyed it. There was nothing really that concerned me except the funding, the annual funding from the 2 towns. Because I always got word that South Paris, which was not at that time as progressive as Norway, I don't know if they are today, and they didn't have the facilities and amenities that this community had, like Norway Opera House, Pennsylvania Lake. I mean, this community had all the resources, and it was amazing what Larry could do. He became like my right-hand man. He supported me in everything I did. And he had the most positive outlook of life. I've never seen a man so positive in life. And he was a wonderful person. It made you feel good to be around him. Norway was not as, at that time, I didn't believe it. I'd say that they were as positive and as progressive. I think their original thinking was that the program was going to be mostly maybe seasonal, because it started out 5,000 apiece. So the following year, for the next budget year, the budget proposal was around 11,000 apiece. My salary was $7,200 and a few dollars for health insurance. And then the expenses, for the truck and for the buildings and so forth. But that $22,000 went a long way, especially when you got in-kind services from all the service clubs, and the cooperation from the school board, the support of the community. I mean, Don McAllister and Willis Parsons, these people stepped up for us. When you look through here, you'll see when we dedicated, cut the ribbon at the Norway Opera House, you'll see a you'll see Lois Parsons, and you'll see Don McAllister cutting ribbon, and the Recreation Commission is all standing behind them. The only person missing from the picture is Grace Wally. I don't know where she was. And it was just a great, great group. But as time went on the following year, I think the concern for taxes in Paris became a major concern. So word got around that maybe my budget might be cut out or something be done. So I did what I could to educate the community. So through all the children, through all the programs, I made sure they had a flyer that made over extension service and made sure that we announced to all the parents that the budget was coming up, and these are all the programs we have, and this is how funding is spent. And in addition to that, I did an annual report. You can go on and you can Google it. They look for Paris or Norway. You'll see an annual report in there. I reported on everything. And I also submitted the budget, what we spent everything on. Very transparent. And I presented that to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they submitted to the towns. And if necessary, in a couple occasions, I would meet at the selectmen and town meetings and answer some questions. Weren't a lot of questions, even from some of the concerns of taxes in Paris. So we go getting ready for town hall, notified all the community, all the children, all the participants, all especially seniors, because they talk and they lobby. So everybody knew the town meeting was coming up, and I had that blessed. I had pickups. Anybody didn't have transportation, especially the seniors, and I got the seniors to carpool. So Norway's first town meeting was no issue. Less than 300 people. I mean, it just went right through. Nobody's. They got the Paris. I had feelings some people saying they want to change things a little. So we got the Paris and big turnout. And I don't think the selectmen anybody knew what's going on. Because we've been out there lobbying all the constituents, boys, girls, seniors, teenagers, through all the programs. And it was letters to the editor. We had letters from the Principal Cunningham, had a letter from Oxford Sheriff at that time. What's his name? I can't remember. Sheriff of the Oxford Police Department. He wrote a letter. We had letters from some of the parents. We had letters from the ministers. There were so many letters they couldn't come all. So we had the press, the Advertiser Democrat, Stan Newhall. He gave me a column each week, and he provided press coverage. He provided pictures. He provided photographs. So we were well covered there, and so Paris went smooth. Paris was a little different. So what we did with notifying all the constituents, all the children, we got a great turnout, and it went right through. And I think the selectmen, they knew that. But it was a more conservative community in a certain respect, and I think their original idea was the program was going to be that big. I probably built it a lot bigger than what they were expecting, but I saw the need for skiing and skating and basketball and all these activities and dance and even fundraising to support themselves. Because even though the budget that second year was only $22,000, my salary came out of $72,000. But they didn't leave a lot, but it went a long ways. But we got a lot of in-kind services, a lot of volunteers. Most everybody who worked with us was volunteers except for Bob Fallon, Connie Fallon. Bob and Connie basically ran the community center, the recreational hall. I would fill in once in a while, and Cindy Buell would help out once in a while. The other staff members was David Fields, who I hired from Buckfield, who originally grew up in Paris. He was the senior advisor for the seniors, and Ruth McGregor. I paid her by the hour, and it was a lot of volunteers, and it was really grassroots community. It really was solid. So we had a solid base, and it went great for about 3 years, and then I moved on. From here, I went to Needham, Massachusetts, and I was a director for Needham, and I was our first full-time director. They'd had a part-time director for years, and he was the athletic director of school, and he was part-time, and he worked with me for 6 months as I supposedly groomed in as a director, and I didn't need to be groomed. So I'm listening to him. I know this, I've been there, I've done that. But I did that, I played the correct politics, and I was there for 3 years. And after 3 years in Needham, traveled down to North Miami, Florida, headed for the sunshine, and I was a director there for 10 years. It's commuted about 35,000. And I stayed there, and then I became director of Parks and Recreation for Hollywood, Florida. Don't be confused, there's 13 Hollywoods all in the United States. That's the Hollywood, Florida. And I became the director there. And had a great program. It was much different though. It's established. It's 7 miles of beach, 3 golf courses, community centers. I mean, just major program. But I can tell you right now, of all the communities I've worked in, this is the one I love the most, this is the one I think of the most. But 2 weeks prior to coming up here, all I could think of is all the things we did, the people we worked with, and Annie. When we did the cutting the ribbon, Ronnie was there, her brother, and a lot of other children were there, and just great community support. Then as we went along, Grace Wally and Harold Wally moved up to Portland. I think they sold the dealership, and Charles Goodspeed became a new commissioner. You probably know Charlie Goodspeed. He also owned Goodspeed Oil, and that's his son. And if anything, I think I've always looked at Ronnie as being very enthusiastic. He was the loud wire of the community center, and we had a lot of fun. And you remember Cindy Buell?
I do, yes.
I wish we could have got hold of her. I heard she's out of state or something, but Cindy Buell, I think she had graduated, she was a senior, and she was a big help. But they volunteered at the ski slope, and they were at the community center, and they helped paint the walls and help with the floors. So they were a big part of the program. But those are great times. I look back, you look back when you, over the years, you think of all the things you did past are really exciting. Memoirs, it's high school graduation, and you go back to the reunions and you see everybody. I compared coming back here to that, if not exceeding that, because I got the chance to come here and actually be a pioneer and to do and accomplish what I had learned in school and learned in working in the Parks and Recreation Department. And it was a great ride. It's one of the best times of my life. And so when Annie called me last year and says the Opera House is we're trying to restore it, explained it all to me. He says, can I get your side of the story? I said, well, how'd you get hold of me? She says, well, I contacted Connie Fallon. I said, Connie, where's she at? She said, I'm still in Maine. So I said, sure. So I called Connie, we chatted for a while. And then I found out that Bob had passed. And they were on right-hand people. They were the backbone of the department. We had a great staff. And it was good times. And I was talking to Annie, she says, I'll do a video of your animal show. I said, nah, I'm coming up. I said, I'm going to come up and do a little visit. Now that I'm 80, I don't take vacations anymore because I don't work. I'm volunteer, so I take trips. This is my memory lane trip. I've been thinking about this trip for 2 months. I've been like thinking about all these people, thinking about Ronnie and Cindy Buell, and thinking about all these people I worked with, and Ruth McGregor, and Dave McGregor. It just all kind of go through me, It's so good to come back. And what's interesting, I met a cousin, who lives in Poland Springs. His name is John Rozos. John Rozos, his father and mother are from the same island. His father's from the same island that my father's from in Heels, Greece. The most northern island in the Aegean, 6 miles off the coast of Turkey. And I went there, and I met some of my family. I did the roots thing in '84. But I found John. He found me really because Annie had contacted Lynn. And Lynn told John, who was a customer.
At the drive-thru.
He says, Mike Rozos, your brother or something?
No, Jeffy, do I know Mike Rozos? I said, he's my brother. No. I said, no, he's not.
His brother, Mike Rozos, was an immigration officer in the Miami International Airport. Now, I'd heard of him before because I came back from the Caribbean, and my wife was coming through, and this guy says, "You're not Mike Rozos." Just go get Mike. So we straightened that out. One of the imposter. So we came home. About a year later, there was an article in the Miami Herald that there were certain immigrants who were coming from the islands, mostly Haitians, and Mike Rozos made some derogatory remarks about Haitians, and it got pretty
No
bad.
filter.
It got pretty bad. So, throughout the Haitian community, there's a big Haitian community in South Park. They said, we're going to get Mike Rozos. So I'm thinking, Mike Rozos. Oh, let me go. I went to see the chief of police, Dick Witt. We're in town about 35,000, city of 135,000. And I said, Dick, they're going to get Mike Rozos. It's not this one. Just in case they get confused down there, even though they made it from Haiti to here, they don't have trouble getting here 20 miles from Miami to Hollywood, Florida. So he said, okay. I said, just kind of keep an eye out for me. If I call you, I need some help. Well, nothing ever really happened.
No.
And nothing ever happened to me. I'm thankful to be here. And I've learned through Mike, through him, John, that he hired someone to do the roots of the town my parents are from. They're from, my father was from the village of Vicky, was a little village outside the town of Cardona. And his family's from Cardona, which is like this, because Vicky's only got less than 200 people. But in '84, I went to Greece and we did the roots thing. And I went back there and with the big, I found my father's house, and it was a butcher house now. It was a butcher.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the word got out, and as we moved in town, all these other Rozos that we think were related to us was a bishop. There was all these family members, and I found cousins, all that stuff. It was like roots. Everyone was roots. So we went back and met a lot of people, and when I got then we from the when we went to Greece, we went from the capital to the islands, and we did the islands. And we got the heels. Always check. Always make sure you got your booking coming back before you do anything else. So I went to check my booking over. Oh no, you don't have another flight for a week. I said, well, I'll stay there 2 days. So what am I gonna do? So I booked in this Helos, which is a ship that goes from Helos City to the capital, Athens. Knowing that John and all that, I'm distant cousins by just coming here, through Lynn and through Ronnie, it's just amazing.
Mike, I got a question. You never said, did you ever get on skis when you were up here?
You know what?
Did you get on skis when you got the ski slope running?
Paris manufacturing gave me a pair of skis, wooden skis. I've never skied before.
No, I don't think you did.
So all the kids, Ronnie and all these kids at top, okay, let's Mr. Rozos. So I put the skis on. First they showed me how to do something. Well, like I said, let's see, have fun. So I go back up the motel and I fall over the side.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm going down. I'm wearing glasses, very nearsighted. And okay, do that snowplow. I'm doing the snowplow. And I hit something. When I hit it, I went face first.
Yeah.
And I buried my face. Everything was in the snow. And the kids were all skiing over top of me. I think Ronnie was wrong. And I'll tell you something. I haven't skied since. And then the ice rink, we all used the ice rink. That was great. And I try to divide things up, which again, ice rink in Paris, flag football and basketball in Paris, a senior system there. Paris manufacturing also provided a long slope. We fenced it, put a bale, a little hay down there, and we had a sledding area. And they were big supporters. As time went on, Hank Morton came onto the commission in Paris. He took Bill Wright's place. And in Norway, Rodney Gager, remember Rodner? Her husband is the veterinarian. She took John Kelly's spot, and no, she took Bracy's spot, and Charlie Goodspeed took John Kelly's spot. Oh, Charlie, I love you, Dad. He's a great guy, great personality, and. Anytime I needed some assistance, I would talk to somebody, especially to a guy. I talked to Bill Dieter and Charlie Goodspeed. I didn't talk to Ronnie. He talked all the time. But we had a great thing going here. And, I think about coming back here. It reminds me of all the high school. You think about all the great times when you were young. you think about your high school reunions and seeing all your friends, you know, everybody you grew up with. That's how I felt when I come in here. It was like a reunion, almost like a high school reunion. Because I worked in 4 different cities, and I can tell you, all the cities, this is the one I enjoyed the most, the one I loved the most, and I think of it often. And so I'm donating the scrapbook to the museum. And whatever it costs to restore the pages, I'm going to pay for. And anything else I can do. I have joined, I am a member of the Historical Society. Sue signed me up. She didn't twist my arm, I signed it up. I'm really thankful. I'm honored to be here, and I'm pleased that you all showed up.
We're honored to have you.
Well, thank you.
Isn't that right?
We love
I'm sure Ronnie can tell you some stories, and Annie can tell you some stories, and Connie can tell you some stories. So if anybody's got any thoughts or memories or complaints, now's the time to air them. But when we opened it, I remember last time I saw Jim was I think he was like, how old were you in the Opera House? You were about 8 or 9?
Well, 7 when you first started.
7, there's a picture of you and Al, there's a picture of him running through the Opera House, and I couldn't remember his age, but I think he was young. And so I know you for a long time. I haven't seen you in 53 years, but we've all changed. We've all grown up.
When did the rec department leave the Opera House? I'm curious, after you left town, but what happened after?
They, in April 1971, Norway passed it unanimously. And then when they went to Paris, and each town had less than 300 people. And they went to Paris, the town of Paris opted out of the commission by 6 votes.
Wow.
6 votes. I wish I'd have been here with my bus.
Yeah.
If I'd have been here, I guarantee you, if I'd have been here, I'd still be here. And then I'm sitting at a recreation department, and I heard it's doing very well. And I went around town yesterday. My only disappointment is the ski slope and the fairgrounds. But I love what they've done with the lake. Like they saw children at the swimming yesterday, and it was just beautiful. Oh, one thing I did skip. The other concern I had about Norway Lake was there was no perimeter around the swimming area when I got here. Even though they had swimming lessons through Red Cross, and we went with them. I said, we got to do something to keep the boats out, and the kids going beyond a certain boundary. So through the JCs and Dave McGregor, we got these big logs. There's plenty of lumber around here. So we got these big logs with telephone poles. Head back over to the long lease, got the eye anchors, got the chains, chained them all together, took the ropes down, put it in the center block, and we just put a boom around the whole area. When you look at the album, you're going to see this big boom. And we built this raft, and on the raft is a diving board. We had expenses, so we had to buy a diving board. So the diving board was at the deep area. So when learning swim lessons were over, we created a recreational swim, public swim. And any child, 8 and over, who could swim, we transported them. Bob, whoever was available, we'd stop at Fox and Guy, we'd pick up kids. The first week we had 800 and 100 children sign up for swim lessons. So the bus was going back and forth for recreational swimming. And we had 2 lifeguards, and then Bob was supervising, and you can see Bob out there going around, he's got the canoe, going around. And you had no trouble hearing Bob. Bob Allen, he didn't need a megaphone, he had a very strong voice. And that's why some coaches are, they got strong voices, but Bob was loved, and he was respected. He was firm, but he was fair, and he was a great coach. And he and Connie, they did a fabulous job. I'm so glad to see you, Miss Bob. One more thing. We did a lot of special events besides the tip of canoe. We had the tip of canoe ran on both. You got 2 men on canoe. One's rowing, and one's got this like a lance with a boxing glove on the end of it. And if you knock the other guy out, you win. You go to round robin, whoever got to the top. And there's a picture of it. You can see the lake and the boom, and you can see there's also the swimming, and you can see the canoe tilt, we call it. And we did fishing tournaments at the lake. Didn't do any ice fishing, I couldn't take that. We did fishing tournaments. I don't know, wasn't even drilling holes and sitting around drinking. Oh, I could go hard. And we did that during the holidays. had 2 mailboxes. I got the Garfunkel built a red mailbox, a Santa Claus, letters to Santa. And we put one in downtown here in downtown Paris. We put the red mailbox there. It's identical, so it's made out of plywood. It didn't look real. It was red. The only drawback was people put the utility bills in there. So I had to go to there and take it to the post office. I didn't see alimony checks. But, we did, everything was grassroots. It was such a wonderful time. And I got to self-actualize and do exactly what I learned. I was in the School of Social Work, majored in recreational leadership. And I got a chance to just do what I thought would be best for the community. Never had any issues, none. Never lost a child in swimming. We had no behavioral problems at the center. Got a little loud once in a while, but you know, kids love to dance. I mean, where I came from, it's doing wallflowers, but here, I think Big Clark did something to these kids. I'm sure there's some other things I'll think of later. There's so much happened in those 3 years. I really loved it. But unfortunately, I know a gentleman followed me by the name of Tony Gianelli, was his name?
Jim Gianelli.
He came out from Colorado. He followed me, and I think Bob Fallon served as an interim. Did you see Bob serve as an interim to the new director came in, or do you remember?
My memory's not like yours.
Oh, it's not.
Mine's not as good as yours.
So I think Bob Fallon was appointed by the commission to be interim, because he was always in the Opera House. Ronnie's shaking his head, yes. That's short, yeah, that's a yes. You did. You did. Bob kept an eye on him. So he came here, he became director, and I'd say they did a good job. And of course, when they killed the program by dropping out of the commission, had left Norway on its own. But Norway created its own recreation department. And they had a new commission come in, and at the day, you got a nice commission. Cottage Street looks nice. You got the rink there, and you get the tennis court. Looks like that building, something, a tennis court or something out there. The basketball court.
They're redoing the tennis courts.
Oh, it's a tennis court?
They're
No.
redoing
Nice
it.
facility.
Yeah.
It's very nice. And, but it's a good job. Norway was always more progressive. They're still progressive. But this time when I came to Norway, I didn't get lost. I Googled everything. 6 months ago, an email today, I wanted to stay on the lake. And I said, let's find a cabin on the lake. Everything was booked. I mean, there was nothing available. There was a couple of things that were available, you know, 1 room and 1 bath, and not much. And, so I couldn't find anything. I didn't want to stay off the lake, so I talked to Annie, and she contacted Debbie Dieter. They have a camp on the cove, off of Cove to Cove Road. And through Annie and Jim and Debbie, they hosted my wife and I, and it's the nicest camp I've been on. The only camp I went to prior to that was the Salvation Army camp when I was 10 years old. And I was so confused. They put the horse, to ride on a horse, we went down this long line and came back. I got on a horse and went all the way down, and he stopped. I said, turn around. The guy said, pull the rein. Oh! It's like a car! That's the only camp I've been to. This is a beautiful camp. I always thank Jim, I feel like I've really connected with Bill. And when I left Norway, Bill was the last guy I saw. First guy I saw. Sorry, Ronnie. So folks, there's some more things in back there, but it's a little fuzzy and I can't remember everything.
You've done pretty well.
Thank you. I just regret I can't recognize everybody, but y'all changed so much. Anybody want to add anything to what I said? You're more than welcome, or correct me, or embellish. Yes.
I'll embellish a little.
Okay.
As a retired teacher from here, you don't know how generous that commission was. I was hired as a special education teacher here in 1974 for the same salary.
And a year and a half later, they raised it to 82.
Whoa.
And you know another issue raised? I think no one said it was an issue, but when I was hired at 7,200, I learned later the town manager and Paris was making $6,500. He was never as warm. Now here's this 24-year-old kid out of school social work, has done some recreation work, never been a director, and he's like, he's probably saying, he's making more money than me. I made a point to visit. I made a point to visit the offices. I live on Highland Avenue. I would stop by regularly. I'd go inside, meet with Ruth DeCola, and meet with Ruth McGregor, and I would sit down and chat with Willis and tell how some things are going and what some of the plans I was planning. And once I got it through the commission, we'd formalize it. And he was a nice man, but wasn't as warm, and I think it was that salary. I mean, Maine is a very conservative state, but Paris was a bit of a conservatism. And
I think it still is.
But it was a good community. And had a great time. So I'd stop in Norway and I'd see Betty Smith and I'd see Tom McAllister. They even gave me a badge, made me a constable. I gave the badge to
It's now the collection.
the collection.
Yes,
I've had that badge all these years, but I never used it. Basically, it's a backup to help the fire department or something else. Chief Guilford, remember Chief Guilford? Yeah. Walking up and down the street, controlling the major crime and the children and youth were not his issue. There were issues. Never had any nobody came from politics.
I'm not from here, but I'm a member of the Opera House board now, and I would love to hear from the kids' perspective.
I would too. Where are you, children? Speak up. Ronnie, you've never been lost for words.
It was a lot of work, a lot of fun, and a lot of that, what was it, ugly blue or something?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But it was all oil-based, so you'd have to use turpentine and stuff to get it off when you were done. It was just a whole team.
Where was your office, Karan? This one right here?
Good to be back home. The beginning of my career.
I was leaving you were here last year, and I didn't know
Wow.
this was your office.
Ticket window.
Yeah, amazing. Wow.
Full of kids.
Oh. Don't want to see my office, follow me.
Different size people. It's good to know they give you the big one here.
Yeah. I put my desk right here, had 2 chairs here, and I could watch the street, who was coming and going. This was the office headquarters.
What was the other one?
It was just another room. This is room 3, I believe.
This was the office.
Yeah. Good to be back. Great memories.
And Money Good Speed was right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is most of his storage and. Where's the pool table? Where's the video table? Wow. So when did they put this frame up?
This is Steve.
I don't know.
Wow.
Hi, Paul Ricky. Nice to meet you as well.
Wow. What the world?
Was there basketball right here? It feels like there would have been. It was around here.
Yeah.
It was part of the room,
Yeah.
as I recall. Yep.
Wow.
But I think there was only one basket, if I remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Oh,
I kind of was thinking this
Yeah,
whole
the
thing.
shuffleboard court.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I remember being, that's where we watched the movies from the balcony, like in junior high.
What a structure.
We're in the Opera House
This
now, and
must
this is
have
the
been where the
balcony.
basketball court was too.
And it needs a lot of
We
work,
need to ask that.
a lot of restoration.
Basketball being here?
I played basketball here.
Your brother played basketball. That's how I found out about it.
This is Steve. Have you guys met each other?
I don't know.
Hi, Paul Ricky.
Paul, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
That's part of the movie screen, that white thing, and they pulled it over the stage. We're on the stage now. And then there's the velvet curtains over there that are still hanging. So we're on the stage looking out to where the audience would have been.
There's a series. And the factories, and every stranger's face I see reminds me that I long to be homeward bound. I wish I was homeward bound. Home, where my thoughts escaping, home, where my music's playing, home, where my love lies waiting silently for me. Tonight I'll sing my songs again, I'll play the game and pretend. But all my words come back to me in shades of mediocrity, like emptiness and harmony. I need someone